Tomahawks could strike all of that. They could actually strike the drone factories. They could strike the energy production. All of that would actually help them get a deal with Putin. Trump's stance towards Ukraine in the past few days has just blown my mind with how stupid it is. So Zelensky first meets him at the White House. He's like, oh, you made previous statements saying that I should have Tomahawk missiles because they would be extremely helpful if you actually want to put pressure on Russia. And then Trump suddenly changes his mind for no reason. Then all of the pro-Russia right-wing people just start cheering in the corner. Then a few days later, of course, he calls Putin and finds out that Putin's a lunatic, right? He has to keep finding that out over and over again. He's like, this guy won't stop fighting on the front lines where they are right now. He won't call off his army. I have no interest in meeting him in Budapest anymore. And he doesn't go and say, let's give the Tomahawks to Ukraine now to actually do something about it. No, he says the two should stop the conflict where they are right now. And he's not going to go anywhere with that statement. It's literally a meaningless statement, right? For those of you who haven't researched this, why the Tomahawk would be so important for Ukraine. Here's why. They could essentially strike the only assets that Russia has over Ukraine. So what does Ukraine have? Ukraine has air superiority given to it from NATO. What do they not have? They don't have mass drone production, mass soldiers, although that's also crumbling. They don't have, mass an oil economy, essentially, the natural resources. Tomahawks could strike all of that. They could actually strike the drone factories. They could strike, the energy production. All of that would actually help them get a deal with Putin. And this idea that now we're not doing a deal, we're just going to stay in this middle ground, right? If you're going to fight a war, and if you're going to take a stance on a war, you might as well do it correctly and do it in a way that's going to lead to an outcome as fast as humanly possible. That's what these Tomahawks would do. And people are giving Ukraine not enough credit. No one seems to recognize just how incompetent the Russian army has become and the decrepit state that it's currently in. Putin is literally pulling people from rural, poor areas, enlisting them in the army for salaries. They have no idea what they're doing. Prigozhin, that's why he rebelled, the leader of the Wagner Group, because that's part of the reason why he rebelled. He was an outward critic of how incompetent Putin's war effort was. That's what happens when you have a state taken over by corruption, and essentially all the competence has been drained out of it. So these Tomahawk missiles were kind of the key, and Biden should have sent more weaponry. Certainly, that's one of my biggest criticisms of Biden, right? If you actually want Putin to care about talking to you, Putin has no feelings for Ukrainians. He has executed them in cold blood, in many documented massacres, right, that are not shared enough in Western media. The only way you're going to get this to stop, the only way you're going to stop, future acts of ethnic cleansing, genocide, is by giving the country what the heck they need. Right? Does the Budapest memorandums not mean anything? Do all those agreements we signed, do they not mean anything? Right? We should be treating this tangentially to if, Russia invaded our sovereign territory. I mean, it's a different scenario but we signed, we gave them security assurances. We secured the sovereignty of Ukraine. This should be a no-brainer. That one of the most violent acts of war should be met with, at the very least, Tomahawk cruise missiles that can strike drone production, so less Ukrainian soldiers die, and ultimately less Russian soldiers die and less civilians die. That's the end goal there. Now, on the China policy, so I was correct. Of course, I'm usually correct about the economic stuff. I'm horrible at predicting war outcomes. Just to be clear. I thought Hamas wouldn't accept the ceasefire, but that's a different conflict. China. Trump seems to have done a complete 180. It was a total sham because he didn't even understand what the export restrictions were. Right? This is a common theme. He just doesn't understand any of these conflicts. So he's like, "Oh, export restrictions of rare earths. Let's put 100% tariffs, even though, oh wait, that policy doesn't even do anything to our importing of rare earths. All we have to do is get licenses, And if China shows in the future that they're going to use those licenses to cut off American companies, then guess what? That's the reality you have to face because you're negotiating with a $30 trillion economy. You can't just throw them around like you do with every other economy. You have to maybe settle on a stable trade relationship, which is what they want. And at least, unlike the talks with Putin, talks with Xi Jinping are still going. They're still going to happen. You have to ask, what does Trump even want? Because if you say, why are you doing this? He'd be like, they're ripping us off. They have a trade deficit. And it's like, he still doesn't even understand that you cannot change a trade deficit. Trade deficits are created in the currency markets. It has nothing to do. It has very little to do with manufacturing policy over in China, or how their courts litigate, or how much they incorporate, U.S. citizens. That has nothing to do with it. The Bank of Japan can make our deficit bigger, but that only benefits us. But that he does not understand that. But back to the conflict that I was completely wrong about, and that Trump has done okay on Gaza, because I guess if we're just talking about how Trump is doing foreign affairs wise, I should also mention Gaza. There is reporting from Al Jazeera that insiders have said Trump is much more pressuring of Netanyahu than Biden was. That's Al Jazeera reporting there. I don't trust Al Jazeera as an outlet for many reasons, but the fact that I don't think they have an incentive to say that. And one of their guys, who's on some Middle East council, said that was the case. He also said that Netanyahu's doing everything he can to scuttle the deal, which is absolutely true. I'm sure there's an internal IDF policy to be very violent towards Palestinians who can even be somewhat construed to be approaching the militarized border, the red line that they've withdrawn to, in order to derail the ceasefire. I have no doubts about that. But the fact of the matter is, I didn't think Hamas would accept this. I thought that they would have a hard line on a bigger withdrawal from Gaza, right? The IDF is still in 50% of Gaza, but I guess Hamas just said, we're kind of done for if they ramp up the bombings even more than they have during the past 2 years, which is what Trump said, credibly said he would do if there was no deal reached. It's probably the end for us. We should take the half of the land that they're offering us, and not agree to anything else. By the way, because while I thought phase 1 would die, I'm almost certain phase 2 will die. Now that is a wartime prediction of which I am probably wrong. The only prediction there, as far as war goes, that I think I was correct about is Ukraine's capacity to fight Russia, because most people just think like Russia is such a big country, they should just squash Ukraine. It's like that's not how wars worked ever. Just look at the entire history of Israel. look at the map and imagine what they had to do in all the wars that they fought. So there's so many factors that go into this.